So let's try this out one more time. If I click on New and we don't enter in any information into the fields, when I click Save, we get an error message at that point, and I type a value in, and when I click Save again, I have to click twice. Oh, and then it triggers the next error message, so I actually have to pick a second option, and then I click Save again, and then I have to click, and then I click Save again, and then click. So this is quite irritating for the user, because we're continually having to sort of save and then go back, save and go back, and save and go back. So is there a better way of actually building this so that all of the error messages would pop up at the same time, so the user would actually just simply be able to go through and enter values into the fields that they've missed out, that are the required fields, rather than that constant process of clicking save over and over again, because obviously that would be quite irritating, particularly for a larger form. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, it involves us changing the flow inside this microflow. What we want to do is, when we've tested a field, we want, instead of actually terminating the microflow completely, we want to flow the microflow, we want to flow back into the microflow so that we can then test the other fields. Now, we haven't done this before, but the way that you can do it is you can use, there's a merge object here. So rather than actually terminating, we'll merge the flow back into this chain. So let's just do that. So I'm going to drag a merge decision into here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go from here and we're going to connect to there like that. And I'm going to delete that particular endpoint. I'm going to do that all the way along. So let's add a merge field into here. And I add the flow back in like that. Delete. So I'm going to carry on doing this all the way along. Add us back into the flow and delete the endpoint. And let's add another one. And add the flow back here and delete this one. Now I'm just going to leave the last one for the moment for reasons that will become apparent in a moment. But that's the general idea. We'll test and then carry on testing the other fields using that merge back into the flow. Let's try it out and see what happens. Save and continue. View the app. Let's go in. And if I tap on new, so now, because I've not filled out any of the fields, hopefully if I click save, that microflow will trigger, and it will actually trigger a validation event for every single field. There we go, just like that. So now we can actually type the K number in, and we can see that we actually have to select values like that. And it saves the value. So that's quite neat. That enables us to progress all the way along, showing the validation messages, and then committing once we're okay. Now you may already have spotted this, it depends how good your logic is. There is actually a problem, and the problem is the fact that the only exit point is when the validation message triggers on the final item. So let's go back in and view the app again and watch what happens. Obviously at this point we've got lots of problems. So if I click save, but if I simply select an item here, I can save. Now that seems a little bit odd, but go back into the logic here. If I click save, you can see what it's doing is the only exit point for us is when something is selected for the last choice. That's where the exit point actually occurs. Our problem is over here. Now you might think, okay, that's easy. What we'll do is we'll add a merge event into here and obviously wire this into the flow and get rid of that end event. But of course now we don't have any exit points when there's an error message. So even though there are error messages will be popping up, we're going to save and leave the page. Let's demonstrate that. Save and continue. View the app. So now I can click New and I should be able to save. So even though the validation message appeared, we couldn't see it because the dialog box actually committed and closed straight away. So even though there were obvious issues with that you can see, we've obviously got no data has been saved at that point. We've clearly got a problem. So how do we overcome this? Well, we have to use a slightly different technique, and this will involve us creating a value, a variable, and what we'll do is we'll use that variable to actually test and save the state of whether an error has occurred or not. And that's what we'll do in the next step.